Professor Evernet, in 2020, you conducted a survey for the VDMA regarding global trade barriers. Now you did a second one. What are the differences and the main key findings this time around?
One big difference from the 2020 study was that we expanded the scope from German exports to EU-wide exports of machinery goods. The findings changed slightly. There were some commonalities, however. We did find a lot of EU exports confronting subsidized rivals abroad in their home markets and in competing for third market contracts. We also found in some jurisdictions many more technical barriers to trade, localization requirements and public procurement requirements as well. So that's a big change. And of course, since 2020, we've had the pandemic and many companies abroad have received subsidies, which of course strengthens their competitive position against European rivals.
The study says that 80% of all exports of mechanical engineering are somewhat hindered by trade barriers. And one would think of tariffs first, but apparently that's not the biggest problem, right?
Correct. What we find is that actually competition between EU exporters and foreign subsidized firms is actually more important than trade barriers. We also find that dealing with foreign technical barriers to trade can be problematic, as well as other behind the border barriers like Buy America provisions with government procurement and localization requirements. So tariffs have become a small part of the story, and as a result, firms exporting from Europe have to deal with a wide range of trade barriers.
What role does the EU play in all of this?
Well, the EU plays a role as both a protector of overseas European export interests, trying to lower trade barriers abroad, but also as a subsidizer at home and also a developer of rules across the European market. So in many respects, the EU is both contributing to solving the problem, but also possibly distorting some markets at home as well.
What political instruments would now be necessary to bring down global trade barriers?
There are a number of instruments which are available, but the first thing we have to do is actually identify these trade barriers abroad and figure out which ones are the more important commercially than others. And that's where this study has helped. The next step is to take this type of evidence and then to ask which tools does the EU have available to be able to convince other governments to lower their trade barriers. And sometimes those tools included negotiating away foreign trade barriers as part of regional trading agreements as well. So we can see that there's a lot of different avenues for the European Commission to advance the interests of the mechanical engineering sector in Europe.